want to talk about our opponent. They're bigger, faster, stronger, more experienced, and on paper, they're just better, and they know it too. But I want to tell you something that they don't know. They don't know your heart.
Patchwork Heart Ministry presents Young Catholics Respond, a challenge for young people to stand up for the Catholic faith and confound the world with radical hope. Now, here's your host, Bill Snyder.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Young Catholics Respond. I am Bill Snyder. It is wonderful to be with all of you here on this episode. Thank you for tuning in and liking our podcast and being with us. I want to remind you that you can always go over and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please do that. We need to get those subscribers up so that more people can see programs like this one. So please head over, and if you're watching this on YouTube, just hit that subscribe button right now. And it's a great way to evangelize because more people see it, the more subscribers we have. It's just that simple. It's so easy. It's the easiest way to evangelize, in my opinion. So please do that right now. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about ourselves today because I have a wonderful guest with me, and his name is Tony Kolenc. We're going to bring him on the screen right now. Hey, Tony, and welcome to Young Catholics Respond. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Bill, thanks so much for having me back.
Absolutely. I just want to give a quick introduction to who you are real quick. And that way, people know who you are that haven't seen the program before. So you are a law professor, podcaster, speaker, and author of the award-winning fiction series, the Harwood Mysteries, and coming out with a brand new book, right, Tony? In the series, it's a long series. This is book number 5 now, and I want to let you tell the listeners the title of this new one because it's got some punch to it, I think.
Absolutely. Book 5 is Murder at Penwood Manor.
That's so great, man.
Book 5 in the Harwood Mysteries. This is the murder mystery that I always wanted to write when I was reading Agatha Christie as a teenager. Gotta write a murder mystery one day.
Yeah, right. That's so cool. Yeah, I'm excited.
Got to, yeah.
Yeah, let me stick up the book cover here for people. Let's just transition there, and the people take a look. Tell us a little bit about the cover. It's gorgeous, right? I mean, it's a gorgeous cover. Tell us.
Loyola Press puts out this series, and they put so much into what they're doing with the artwork, with the maps on the inside, with all of the extras they do. But this cover is fabulous. You could see on the front is the main suspect in the murder mystery, and his name is Lawrence. He is a crusader. It's 1187 in England, and he has just returned from the Holy Land, and he's accused of a murder. And behind him, you could see Father Philip, who happens to be a priest, traveling with my main character, who you could see way in the back. Zan, and Lucy is holding a little oil lamp there. And Zan and Lucy are 2 of my 3 main characters. Zan's, of course, the main protagonist. Lucy has been with him since book 1. And Christina, the other main female character, has been with him since book 2. And you mentioned it's a series. I am putting, literally as we speak, this week, the finishing touches on book 6, which is going to round out the series. That will be the final book in the Harwood Mysteries. So all of these other books sort of are leading up to what's going to happen in book 6. So it's an exciting time for me as I'm, writing this. In fact, I was talking to my wife earlier, and she was like, "Okay, this is the end of the whole series now. How do you want this to end? Do you want it to end the way that it looks like it's going to end now, or do you want to change it?" So I guess that means I'll be changing it. But that's how all the books get to be so good. I let my wife read them, and then she tears them to shreds and tells me all the ways I need to improve them. And then I listen to her about half the time, and that's why they're not quite as good as they could be, but they'll have to do.
No, that's, it's amazing. I enjoy talking to you so much because, you have such a, passion for reaching into the heart of the young adult and pulling it out. And, you've certainly done an amazing job in this, in this series and through this series of books. You've done a great job. And so, maybe even for people who, I know we're going to talk the bulk about book 5, and we certainly don't want to give away any, spoilers, but talk about maybe, the just what has led up to book 5, the different books and kind of where you are in the series.
Yeah, so look, and I'll show you the covers as we go. I've got the other ones in my hand because book 5 comes out October 24th, so I don't even have a hard copy yet. When you have that image, that's the best I've got right now. Book 1 was Shadow in the Dark. This is what heads the whole series off. My main character, Zan, starts off at 11 years old in this book. He ends up at 15 and 16 by the time we get to the end of the series. But it takes place in medieval England. In book 1, he gets, his bandits attack his village. He winds up getting orphaned at this Benedictine abbey that's nearby to his manor, and the monks take him in. And that's where he meets Lucy. She's there with the nuns because her father dropped her off there. And there's this kind of spooky mystery in book 1 that's kind of this it's kind of got a death and suffering theme in book 1. This guy on the cover looks like the Grim Reaper. They call him the Shadow, and he's kind of roaming around the grounds of the abbey, and these bandits are attacking, and there's all this kind of going on. But it's actually taking place also in sort of, I try to world build a historical setting, so it's technically like historical fiction, but it's heavy on the fiction and light on the history. It's enough to kind of give us some of the key things that are going on. A fascinating time in history in England, especially. King Henry II, Richard the Lionheart, the Third Crusade is about to happen. And that's that guy on the front cover of book 5. He's not in the Third Crusade. He's precursor to the Third Crusade. So that's book 1. Book 2 was the Haunted Cathedral. You could see Zan and Lucy there inside of Lincoln Cathedral, which is actually a few-day journey from the abbey where they're staying in Yorkshire, England. And Lincoln Cathedral, famous cathedral. This is an older version of the current cathedral. And there's actually this major historical event that takes place in 1185 AD. And that's why I set the book 2 there. And Zan and Lucy are in the cathedral when the event takes place. So that was exciting for me historically. Book 3 was The Fire of Eden. Where Zan, by the way, book 2 is where he meets Christina. She lives in Lincoln, and she is sort of like this, very sassy, beautiful redhead who likes to put Zan in his place. And so she's going to factor large later. Fire of Eden, book 3, Zan and Lucy go back to, the abbey, and that guy on the cover who looks a little bit like Gandalf or Saruman from Lord of the Rings. He's actually a suspect because book 3 was my jewel thief book. Who done it? Who stole the jewel? The name of the jewel is Eden's Fire, so that's the Fire of Eden. And that magician in the woods is a prime suspect. And then book 4, which is what I think we talked about last time I was here, The Merchant's Curse. Look at this beautiful artwork from Loyola. This cover actually won a book award just for the cover, even because they did such a nice job. You could see Zan in the back. Him and Christina are looking out of these ruins that they're in at this witchy woman. Book 4 takes place in Lincoln again. Lucy's not in book 4, actually. Christina's in book 4 with him. And that's kind of it's almost like a witch story, because that woman is cursing people, and they've got to figure out, is she a real witch? Are these real curses? What's going on? Why are people looking like they're going to die? And so those are the first 4 books. And then book 5, Zan and Christina go back to the abbey and one of the manors, back in the Middle Ages under the manorial system going on, these Benedictine abbeys would actually be landlords over other manors. Like they would own villages, and some of them were actually quite rich and owned a lot of manors. Harwood Abbey only has 2 manors, and they're not particularly wealthy manors either. But at one of these manors, Penwood, there is a murder, and so book 5 is really exciting to me because we've been leading up to the Third Crusade, which is, I think, when we think about the Crusades, I mean, there's a lot of things you could think about. The First Crusade takes place in 1095 AD. And that's when the Christians go back into the Holy Land after the Muslims have pretty much owned the Holy Land for several centuries. They take back Jerusalem and a whole swath of that section of the Holy Land, and they set up these Crusader states. And then when the Crusader states are threatened, the Second Crusade happens in 1154. That's the one with Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. But that crusade doesn't really do a heck of a lot. So the Third Crusade is the one that people remember a lot of times because what winds up happening is Saladin, which is a name that some people might remember, is this Muslim sultan, and he actually takes back Jerusalem for the Muslims in 1187, the same year that Book 5 is taking place, and that triggers the Third Crusade. And Richard the Lionheart, who we remember from all the Robin Hood movies, shows up at the end of Robin Hood, because that's the same time Robin Hood's going on. He goes on crusade. That's why he's not there. And that's why Robin Hood has to fight the government, because the king is gone. He's on the crusade. And so that is what my stories have been building up to, this time period leading into the Third Crusade. And so I'm really excited because Book 6 finally gets all of my characters outside of England on their way, if you will, almost to the Holy Land. So that's going to be an exciting end to the series. But you get the flavor of what's going on with the series. It's mystery adventure in a historical setting, with kind of this kind of suspenseful, scary vibe in the background, but nothing that a parent or a grandparent would ever worry about buying for their teenager. Unlike most of the mainstream fiction out there, these books are all seal of approval from the Catholic Writers Guild, getting awards from different Catholic organizations and other organizations. There's nothing that you have to worry about if just because there's some scary substance here. It's not the kind of thing that parents need to be concerned about. That's for sure.
No, we know that. I mean, that's so great, Tony. That you write with that in mind, and it's always building virtue, and that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because I know that you put virtue lessons in each and every one of these books, and so I would love to know, if you don't mind sharing, what that virtue is that you're targeting for this particular book in Book 5, Murder at
Yeah,
Penwood Manor.
so you say virtue lessons, and they might be vice lessons. That's actually a lot of times, because it's the kind of the negative aspect of things. And you're right, although it never drives the story. Every good story, if you're watching Die Hard or Braveheart or anything else, there's always like some moral premise to the story. I know this as a person who tells stories too. And so if you can have like a premise that sort of guides every character struggles, the book or the movie will just resonate a lot better, because it's kind of firing on all cylinders. Book 5's premise deals with the vice of envy, which is not something that we hear talked about enough. People think, oh, envy, well, that means you're jealous of something. Not quite. But envy is in some ways, maybe the source of all evil. You say pride is the source of all evil, but envy actually could lead to pride. But in fact, if you think about the Bible, the very first murder that ever occurs in the Bible is Cain murdering his brother Abel out of envy, because Abel's sacrifice was taken by God and Cain's was not. And so kind of Book 5, it's fitting for it to be a murder mystery, because envy often is behind why people want to kill other people. Either they want what that person has that they do not have, or, like with Cain and Abel's, situation, they are just so green with envy that this person has that if nothing else, they want to just take it away from them. At least they won't have it then. And this is the source of a lot of evil and murder in the world. And so it made sense to have that be sort of the vice that sort of comes to the forefront. And of course, it's not just murder. Envy can come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. And all of my characters, in some way or other, is sort of dealing with, coping with envy, and how do you overcome envy so that you don't become a murderer, if you will. So that's what Book 5 is about. I should probably tell you the other ones real quick.
Yeah.
Book one is really about sort of death and suffering and why do bad things happen to good people. So that death theme, that's why I have the Grim Reaper kind of character there on the front. Book two is about forgiveness and how if you don't forgive, it haunts you. Haunted Cathedral. And Zan is a very human character, and he does not want to forgive a very bad person who did something really bad to him, and it sort of eats him up the whole book because of that. And so you kind of see what happens if you don't forgive. What happens to you when you don't forgive. Book three is about pride. You got this beautiful honkin' ruby that's priceless and is a source of pride. Talk about the Garden of Eden and Eden's fire. Actually, if you remember the cherubim that was set up in the Garden of Eden with the flaming sword to keep man from going back into the garden because of his pride. So that's sort of partly why the title of the book is The Fire of Eden. Book four is really about vanity and all the different vanities of this world that we get sidetracked by. I used the book of Ecclesiastes as my model for that. King Solomon's vanity of vanities, everything is vanity, and you could have money, you could have power, you could have fame, you could have girls, you could look beautiful, but none of that in the end is going to matter. It's all vanity. And so that's kind of what's going on in the witch book, The Merchant's Curse. So I've got envy for book five.
That's amazing. I mean, and again, for parents and grandparents listening, I mean, you got to be loving what you're hearing from Tony, because, this is exactly what you want your young person to be reading. This is exactly what you want, a person to be, encountering, because you're giving people tools, teaching life lessons through a wonderful adventure, right? I mean, this is adventure. This is, action. This is great things that are happening. And it's through books. It's through the imagination that you're, prompting to really learn these great lessons. And you want to be forming young people at this age, right? Like, you want to be forming them at this age, really well.
Absolutely. And that's the primary reason I wrote the series. We were homeschoolers. I wanted something that our teens could, consume, and that would be not only wholesome, but would actually be pretty cool and would be really entertaining. And they might even learn a little bit about history and that. So, all those cool things homeschoolers want to do. I wanted to find a way to balance all of them into a novel that would be compelling for a young reader. But I know you have college students that listen to your show also, and I would encourage them to take a look at this, because I know, like, when my kids, as they've been growing up, I wound up reading all sorts of teen series. The Hunger Games comes to mind, obviously Harry Potter, and even like the Divergent series and these kind of things. And they're a lot of fun to read as a young, even as a 20-something-year-old. So I was trying to go for that. I wanted the books to fire on more than one level. And so, yes, it's accessible to 10 and up. The characters are in their lower teen years, especially when they start. But there's enough in here that I think readers of all ages really can enjoy them, and you'll pick up on things that the younger readers won't pick up on. Just like when you watch, some of these Disney movies or whatever, and you're like, wait a minute, there was a lot of adult jokes in this movie that the kids didn't get. There's some of that going on too. So it's not just for young readers, but obviously that would be great for young readers to get their hands on it. Because I'm telling you, and you know this, Bill, the garbage that the mainstream publishing houses are putting out now for our kids is honestly shocking. I mean, we thought it was bad maybe 10 years ago. It's going the way of everything else. I mean, you see it in the schools, and they're doing it in publishing just like they're doing it in movies and TV. And so now more than ever, you need places like CatholicTeenBooks.com, which you probably are familiar with that site. There's 16 of us Catholic authors writing, for teenagers. And they're not all religious books. They don't all have, overtly religious themes, but they're all good books that can be consumed by teens with good values. So I always like to plug catholicteenbooks.com when I'm on an interview, because there's so many of us out there that are getting, you name the kind of book that you want your, kid or grandkid to read, it's on, catholicteenbooks.com. And there's many other authors out there too. I'm sure. And I know you're involved with CMAX, and I mean, there's just so many good places to go now, but sometimes people don't even know they exist. And then when they learn them, they're like, what? There's PureFlix? What's that? I never heard of that.
Exactly.
And then you're like, what? Catholic Teen Books? Let me check it out.
Well, yeah, that's a big reason why we call our show what we call it, right? Like Young Catholics Respond. It's take a stand. I like to think of it both as a declarative statement and an imperative statement, right? So like here it is. Yeah, we're declaring, hey, this is Young Catholics' response to the culture, but it's also a the imperative statement that you need to go out and respond to the culture that you are, encountering, right? And so I think it's really important to have, as many arrows in your quiver as you can possibly have. And so, the reason why we do the show, right, to be able to introduce people to our audience that are doing great things for the church. And, as you mentioned, it may not be overtly, Catholic, but it's not the reverse. It's not, putting the garbage in, right? And it's putting virtue in, or as you said, some vice lessons. Hey, listen, if you go down this path, it's not going to be great for you, right? Like it's not going to be a wonderful life if you go down this path. And so I think that is so very important for young people to understand, and you're out there doing it, and which is great, Tony. So thank you for all you're doing. I if you want to touch a little bit on the podcast as well, because I know you've got a wonderful podcast as well called Shepherd's Pie. So
yes, I have great guests like Bill Snyder on the Shepherd's Pie. So it's some of the best people out there. So I'm looking forward to our interview for season 3. The Shepherd's Pie. It's actually a radio show on a Catholic station, WQPH in Massachusetts, but it's also, I then release it separately as a podcast, and it's on its 3rd season. My first 2 seasons were really focused on youth related issues, and I had a lot of Catholic teen books authors on talking about all the different issues. Season 3, I've really kind of changed gears a little bit. I've opened it up. My tagline for season 3 is a slice of faith for our messy lives. And what I really want to do, whether you're young, old, or in between, single or married, I want a place where we can talk about how our faith can, no kidding, like where the rubber meets the road, help us get through a lot of the garbage that life throws at us. And, like we're just starting season 3. So I think I've got 3. This week will be the 4th, episode coming out. But the very first episode for season 3, I interviewed Annie Harton, who you might not know her, but she's a Catholic marriage and social therapist, and she focuses on the single life. So it's all about how single people can have faith in their lives and stay on on the right track, and the challenges of being single today, and keeping your faith too. So those are the kinds of things, and it's ecumenical too. I like to interview not just Catholics, so I tend to offset it with Catholic and non-Catholic interviews, even though the content is always going to be Catholic friendly and compatible.
Yeah, no, it's so important. Again, you're a person out there doing great stuff in the church, and it's so heartwarming to hear that you are, expanding it a little bit, but also beyond just expanding it, you are also, talking to the greater body of Christ as well, right? Like, it's Catholic friendly, it's in line with church teaching, but at the same time, hey, we've got to reach out, we've got to go wider. If we just continually, talk to our little tiny choir, we're never going to really reach out and, fan the flames and evangelize and touch people in the real world. And so you're doing that, and the topics are fascinating. The people you have on is always fascinating. And I encourage people to certainly tune in and listen to it. Tell people where they can find it, and then, all of that good stuff.
Sure. Well, for me, you can always find anything related to me, whether it's my podcast or my books, on my website, which is AntonyKolenc.com. There's no H in Anthony, so be careful about that. but it's actually hosted through Spotify. So you can find it on Spotify podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breadbox Media has it on there. It's probably on at least 8 or 10 different podcasting platforms, Podbean. So whatever your podcasting platform of choice is, it's probably on there. But I record it through Spotify Podcasters, which used to be Anchor FM. And it is audio only. There's not a video component, but and each show goes no more than 28 minutes because that's what my radio show slot is.
Right, that's right. Those great people at WQPH as well. Thank you for carrying the show. And it's just a wonderful thing, right? It's just a wonderful thing. So, tune in. And I think the real big lesson for young people today, if we have any virtue lesson to leave people with on today's show, I think it really, truly is consume great Catholic media, consume great Catholic writing, and support Catholics, right? We all need support in our ministries, and buying a book, listening to a podcast, subscribing to a YouTube channel. Those little things, most of them are free or cost less than $10, right? I mean, most of them are free, cost less than $10 or $15. So please, just support Tony and his ministry. Again, Anthony Kolenc. .com is the website. So thank you so much.
Can I plug one more thing while I'm here?
Absolutely.
You've got a show called Young Catholics Respond. And I know a lot of young Catholics, whether they're in high school or college, are writers at heart and want to write oftentimes fiction, fantasy, science fiction, that kind of thing. I want to plug one other place that I'm involved with. It's called Legend Fiction. Dominic D'Souza is kind of the brain trust behind that. And they're doing in just a coming, actually it's next weekend, next Saturday, they're doing something called Legend. Is it Legend Haven? Anyway, you can look up legendfiction.com. It's really geared towards young writers of all different genres. So if you're one of those like young writers and you're like, yeah, but I wish I had a place where I could network with other young writers and learn the craft, that's a good place to go. I'm actually doing my book 5 book launch at Legend Fiction's Legend Haven on Saturday next week.
Awesome. Tony, thank you so much. It's always awesome talking with you and hanging out with you virtually, man. So thank you so much for being our guest tonight and coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. It's so good to be on your show, and I really appreciate what you're doing, and I can't wait to hear more about it on the Shepherd's Pie coming up in one of our episodes.
Yes, we will do that for certain. So again, thank you. And folks, until next time, from all of us here at Patchwork Heart Ministry, may God bless you. Keep beating to those Catholic hearts.
Young Catholics Respond is a production of Patchwork Heart Ministry. For more information about this and all our media programs, visit patchworkheartradio.org. To learn how you can support our ministry or become a sponsor, visit patchworkheart.org.